Myths of Ife by John Wyndham. This short book is a translation of some of the myths of the Yoruba people of Nigeria. It is a history of the creation of the world, the gods, and humanity, and the early days of the sacred city of Ife, the traditional center of Yoruba culture. The text was recited to the author-translator by the high priests of Ife, and the book is still cited in some books on traditional Yoruba religion and thought today. It has undeservedly become quite rare, as it can be considered a minor classic in the field. Author's note. The author spent several years as an assistant district officer among the Yorubas in Nigeria and was thus enabled to collect the folklore contained in this book from native sources. The reticence of the natives on religious subjects made it necessary to piece much together from incantations and chance remarks, but it is hoped that the notes will show that no great liberty has been taken with the beliefs of a tribe which inhabits a large area in West Africa. The legends are bare and uncertain, and it seemed that blank verse would prove a more suitable form to present them than prose. The author desires to express his indebtedness to Mr. Ford Madox Huifer for advice when this work was half finished, and also to the Council of the Royal Anthropological Institute for permission to republish Notes 1 and 1014, which appeared originally in Man. The suggestions contained in Note 4 on the creation of man, and in Note 7 on the possible connection between the Edi festival and the Saturnalia, are offered after a subsequent reading of the Golden Bough. Aramfi, god of thunder and father of the gods; Orisha, creator of men, son of Aramfi; Odua, or Odudua, king of men, son of Aramfi; Ógun, god of iron, son of Odua; Orayan, the warrior son of Ógun; Lady, smith of Ógun; Obalufon, a worker in brass; Mórími, wife of Obalufon; Ifa, the messenger of the gods, principally known by reason of divination; Olokun, goddess of the sea; Olosa, goddess of the lagoons; Oshun, a goddess who transformed and became the river Oshun; Edi, the perverter, a god of evil who led men astray; Eshu, now regarded as the devil, but originally as the undoer of the favors of the gods; Paragun Gibo, a forest god who caused the forest to bring forth wild animals and watched over the birth of Orunmila; Orunmila, a god who watches over the birth of children; Ofankanran, a messenger of Ifa; Orni Odumla, the ancestor of the Ornis of Ife; Ojumu, a priest; Osanyi, a priest and maker of charms. The sun, moon, night, day, dawn, and evening were also gods and goddesses sent by Aramfi, who is often spoken of as God. But a higher and very distant being is mentioned by some of the priests. Oibo means white man. Okpele is a charm used in the divination of Ifa. The final N is as in bone, and French pronunciation is nearly correct in all the above names. A white man visits Ife, the sacred city of the Yorubas, and asks to hear the history of the place. The Orni, the religious head of Yoruba land, begins and directs the Babalawo Araba, the chief priest of Ifa, to continue. 1. The beginning. The Orni of Ife speaks. Oibo, you have asked to hear our lore, the legends of the world's young hours. And where could truth in greater surety have its home than in the precincts of the shrines of those who made the world, and in the mouths of priests to whom their doings have been handed down from sire to son? Aramfi reigns in heaven. Before this world was made, there reigned Aramfi in the realm of heaven amidst his sons. Old were the hills around him. The sun had shone upon his vines and cornfields, since time past reckoning. Old was Aramfi, the father of the gods. His youth had been the youth of heaven. Once, when the king reclined upon the dais and his sons lay prostrate in veneration at his feet, he spoke. Tells his sons of the creation of heaven. Of the great things he purposed. My sons, you know, but fair things which I made for you, before I called your spirits from the dusk. For always your eyes have watched the shadows and the wind on waving corn, and I have given you the dances and the chorus of the night. An age of mirth and sunrise, the wine of heaven, is your existence you have not even heard. Of the gray hour when my young eyes first opened, to gaze upon a herbless mass, unshaped and unadorned. But I knew well the heart of him who speaks not, the far-felt purpose that gave me birth. I labored, and the grim years passed. Streams flowed along their sunny beds. I set the stars above me, and the hills about. I fostered budding trees and taught the birds their song. The unshapely I had formed to beauty, and as the ages came, I loved to make the beautiful more fair. All went not well. A noble animal my mind conceived emerged in loathsome form to prey upon my gentle creatures. A river born to bask in sunlit channels and mirror the steep hills, tore down its banks and ravaged field and plain. While cataract and jagged precipice, now grand with years, remind me of dread days when heaven tottered and wide rifts sundered my young fair hills, and all seemed lost. Yet I prevailed. Think now, if the accomplished whole be heaven, how wonderful the anxious years of slow and hazardous achievement, a destiny for gods. But yours it has not been to lead creation by the cliff's edge way from mass to paradise. He paused on the remembrance, and great Orisha cried, Can we do naught? What use in Godhead without deeds to do, where yearns a helpless region for a hand to guide it? And old Aramfi answered him, Sends them to make the world. My son, your day approaches far off. The haze rests always on the outer waste which skirts our realm. Beyond, a nerveless mass lies cold. 'Neath floods which some malign unreason heaves. Oduwa, firstborn of my sons, to you I give the 5-clawed bird, the sand of power. Go now, call a despairing land to smiling life above the jealous sea, and found sure homesteads for a new race whose destiny is not the eternal life of gods. You are their judge, yours is the kingship, and to you all gods and men are subject. Wisest of my sons, Orisha, yours is the grateful task to loose vague spirits waiting for the dawn, to make the race that shall be. And to you I give this bag of wisdom's guarded lore and arts, for man's well-being and advancement. And you, my younger sons, the chorus and the dance, the voice of worship and the crafts are yours, to teach, that the new thankful race may know the mirth of heaven and the joys of labor. Then Oduwa said, Happy our life has been, and I would gladly roam these hills forever. Your son and servant. But to your command I yield, and in my kingship pride o'ersteps sorrow and heaviness. Yet, Lord Aramfi, I am your firstborn. Wherefore do you give the arts and wisdom to Orisha? I, the king, will be obeyed. The hearts of men will turn in wonder to the god who spells strange benefits. But Aramfi said, Enough. To each his fitting task is given. Farewell. The gods leave heaven. Here the beginning was. From Aramfi's vales, through the desert regions, the exiled gods approached the edge of heaven and into blackness plunged, a sunless void or a godless water lying. To seize an empire from the dark and win amidst ungoverned waves a sovereignty. Oduwa steals the bag and causes war on earth. But by the roadside, while Orisha slept, Oduwa came by stealth and bore away the bag Aramfe gave. Thus was the will of God undone. For thus with the charmed sand cast wide on the unmastered sea, his sons called forth a world of envy and of war, of man's creation and of the restraint Olokan placed upon the chafing sea, of the unconscious years which passed in darkness, till dazzling sunshine touched the unused eyes of men of war and magic. My priest shall tell you, and all the great ones did before the day. Life in Ilé-Ifè is as it was in the time of the gods. They vanished to return to the calm hills of old Aramfi's realm. They went away. But still with us their altars and their priests remain, and from their shrines the hidden gods peer forth with joy to watch the dance they taught and hear each night their chorus with the drum. For changeless here the early world endures. In this first stronghold of humanity, and constant as the buffets of the waves of Queen Olokun on the shore, the song, the dance of those old gods abide, the mirth, the life. Odumla speaks for the gods. I too am born of the beginning, for when from the sight of men the great gods passed, they left on earth Orni Odumla, charged to be a father to a mourning people, to tend the shrines and utter solemn words inspired by those invisible. And when Odumla's time had come to yield the crown, to wait upon the river's brink and cross to old Aramfi, Ilé-Ifè in his wisdom, and lives forever in the person of the Orni. Proclaim that son with whom Odumla's soul abode, thus has it ever been. And now, with me that being is, about within, and on our sacred days, these lips pronounce the words of Odudua and Orisha. To the Descent. Araba speaks. I am the voice of Ilé-Ifè, messenger of all the gods. To me the histories are known, and I will tell you of the days of the descent, how old Aramfi sent the gods from heaven, and Odudua stole the bag. My king has told you. For many a day across unwatered plains the great ones journeyed, and sandy deserts, for such is the stern bar set by Aramfi twixt his smiling vales. The gods arrive at the edge of heaven, and the stark cliff's edge, which his sons approached tremblingly, till from the sandy brink they peered down the sheer precipice. Behind them lay the parched, forbidding leagues, but yet the sun was there, and breezes soft, and yet the mountains, a faded line beyond the shimmering waste, called back to mind their ancient home. Beneath hung chaos, dank blackness, and the threatening roar of untamed waters. Then Odudua spoke. Orisha, what did we? And what fault was ours? Outcast today, tomorrow we must seek our destiny in dungeons, and beneath that yawning blackness we must found a city for unborn men. Better a homeless life in desert places, dare we turn and flee to some lost valley of the hills. Orisha, what think you? Then spoke Orisha, whom men call the Great. Is this Odua that I hear, my mother's son who stole Aramfi's gift, and thought to filch away the hearts of men with blessings which were mine to give? For me the arts I know I long to use, and yearn to see the first of toiling, living men that I shall make. Forbidding is our task, you say, but think ere we return to peace and heaven's calm, how boundless is the fate you flinch from. Besides, is Godhead blind? You think Aramfi would not know, has might no bodes with eyes and ears? Dumb spirits hungering for life await us, let us go. Odua sends Ojumu with the bird. So spoke Orisha. And Odua hung a chain over the cliff to the dark water's face, and sent Ojumu, the wise priest, to pour the magic sand upon the sea and loose the five-clawed bird to scatter far and wide triumphant land. But as earth's ramparts grew, ever in the darkness came the waves and sucked away the crumbling shore, while foot by foot lagoons crept up and turned to reedy swamps, the soil of hope. And Olokun and Olosa. So Odudua called Olokun and Olosa to the cliff, and thus he spoke. Beneath, the waters wrestle with the new rising world, and would destroy our kingdom and undo Aramfi's will. Go to the fields of men to be, the homes that they shall make. Olokun, to the sea, for there your rule and your dominion shall be, to curb the hungry waves upon the coastlands, forever. And thus in our first queen of cities, and secret sanctuaries on lonely shores, through every eon as the season comes, shall men bring gifts in homage to Olokun, and you, Olosa, where your ripple laps. The fruitful bank shall see continually the offerings of thankful men. The bird makes the earth. The months of heaven passed by, while in the moonless night beneath the bird toiled on until the bounds, the corners of the world were steadfast. And then Oduwa called Orisha and the gods to the cliff's edge and spoke these words of sorrow. We go to our sad kingdom, such is the will of old Aramphei, so let it be. But ere the hour the wilderness which gapes for us engulf us utterly, ere the lingering sight of those loved hills can gladden us no more. May we not dream a while of smiling days gone by? Fair was drenched morning in the sun, when dark the hilltops rose o'er misty hollows. Fair were the leafy trees of night beneath the silvering moon, and beautiful the wind upon the grasslands. Goodbye, ye plains we roamed. The gods descend. Goodbye to sunlight and the shifting shadows cast on the crags of heaven's blue hills. Ah, wine of heaven, farewell. So came the gods to Ilé-Ifè. Then of an age of passing months untold, by wanings of the moon our lore repeats. A sunless world. The dirge of wasting hopes and the lament of a people in a strange world, shuddering beneath the thunder of the unseen waves, on crumbling shores around. All was the marsh, pressed eagerly on Ilé-Ifè. But ever the bird returned with the unconquerable sand. Ojumu poured from his enchanted shell, and the marsh yielded. Then young Ógun bade the forest grow her whispering trees, but she budded the pallid shoots of hopeless night. And all was sorrow round the sodden town where Oduduwa reigned, yet for live men. Orisha creates man. Orisha, the creator, yearned and called to him the longing shades from other glooms. He threw their images into the wombs of Night, Olokun, and Olosa. And all the wives of the great gods bore babes with eyes of those born blind, unknowing of their want, and limbs to feel the heartless wind which blew from outer nowhere to the murk beyond. But as the unconscious years wore by, Orisha, the creator, watched the unlit dawn of man wistfully, as one who follows the set flight of a lone sea-bird when the sunset fades beyond a marshy wilderness, and spoke to Oduduwa. Our day is endless night, and deep wan woods enclose our weeping children. The ocean menaces, chill winds moan through our moldering homes. Our guardian night, who spoke to us with her strange sounds in the still hours of heaven, is here, yet she can but bewail her restless task. And where is evening? Oh, where is dawn? He ceased, and Oduduwa sent Ilé-Ifè, the messenger, to his old sire, to crave the sun and the warm flame that lit the torch of heaven's evening and the dance. Aramphei sends fire, the sun and the moon. A deep compassion moved thunderous Aramphei, the father of the gods, and he sent down the vulture with red fire upon his head for men, and, by the gods' command, the bird still wears no plumage where those embers burned him, a mark of honor for remembrance. Again the Father spoke the word, and the pale moon sought out the precincts of calm night's retreat, to share her watch on darkness. And day took wings, and flew to the broad spaces of the sky, to roam benignant from the floating mists, which cling to hillsides of the dawn, to Eve, who calls the happy toilers home. The age of mirth. And all was changed, for when the terror of bright day had lifted from the unused eyes of men, sparks flew from Lady's anvil, while Ógun taught the use of iron, and wise Obalufon made brazen vessels, and showed how wine streams out from the slim palms. And in the night the gods set torches in their thronging courts to light the dance, and heaven's music touched the drum once more, as in its ancient home. And mirth with Oduduwa reigned. 3. The War of the Gods. Araba continues. Oibo, I will tell and chronicle a second chapter from the histories bequeathed from other times. The fable of earth, water, and forest. A tale is told how God in the beginning sent 3 sons into the world, earth, water, and the forest, with 21 gifts for earth and men that are the sons of earth. And all save one the forest and the rivers stole, and how God promised to his firstborn, earth, that men should win the 20 gifts again by virtue of that last one, good humor. And this is true. For in those years when Ógun and the gods made known their handicrafts, men learned to seek thatch, food, and wine in forest and in river patiently. Strife between Oduwa and Orisha. So man prevailed, but in those days came strife and turmoil to the gods. For still, for jealousy and pride, Oduwa held. The bag Aramfe gave to great Orisha. Often Orisha made entreaty. Oft a suppliant came before his brother, in vain, till once when Oduduwa sat with Ógun in that same palace where the Orni reigns, the sound of drums was heard, and great Orisha approached with skilled Obalufon, and said, "The time has come to teach Aramfe's arts to men. Give back the bag, for it is mine, that I may do our father's bidding. Else have a care. Is it not told how caution slept in the still woods when the proud leopard fell, lured on by silence, 'neath the monster's foot? Then was Oduwa angered exceedingly. Am I not king? Did not Aramfe make me lord of gods and men? Begone, who speaks unseemly words before the king has packed his load." Brings war to Ilé-Ifè. Orisha and Oduwa called to arms their followings of gods and men. And on that day the first of wars began in Ilé-Ifè and the forest. Such was the fall of the gods from paths divine, and such for men, the woe that Oduduwa's theft prepared. But little the gods recked of their deep guilt, till darkness fell, and all was quiet. For then returned the memory of calm, their heritage, of heaven born and destined for the world. Gloom, too, with the still night came down. A sense of impious wrong, ungodly sin, weighed down warriors aweary, and all was changed. Around, dead the forest seemed, its boughs unstirred, dead too, amidst its strangling, knotted growth, the stifled air, while on that hush, the storm's mute herald, came the distant, thunderous voice of old Aramfe as he mused. Aramfe tries to stop it. In vain into the waste beneath I sent my sons, the children of my happy vales, to make a world of mirth. For desolation holds the homes of Ilé-Ifè, and women with their babes are outcast in the naked woods. But when the whirling clouds were wheeling in the sky, and the great trees were smitten by the wind, thunderous Aramfe in his ire rebuked his erring sons. At my command you came to darkness, where the evil of the void, insentient violence, had made its home, to shape in the abyss a world of joy, and led creation in the ways of heaven. How then this brawling? Did the void's black soul outmatch you, or possess your hearts to come again into its own? For man's misfortune I grieve, but you have borne them on the tide of your wrongdoing, and your punishment is theirs to share. For now my thunderbolts I hurl with deluges upon the land, to fill the marshes and lagoons and stay, for I your impious war. But fails. Dawn came. The storm was gone, and old Aramfe in his grief departed on black clouds. But still the wrath, but still the anger of his sons endured, and in the dripping forests and the marshes the rebel gods fought on, while in the clouds afar Aramfe reasoned with himself, I spoke in thunders, and my deluge filled the marshes that Ojamu dried, but still they fight. Punish I may, but what can I achieve, in heaven omnipotent? But here, what means it? I cannot tell. In the unknown, beyond the sky where I have set the sun, is he who speaks not. He knows all. Can this be truth? Amidst the unnatural strife of brothers, the world was weaned. By strife must it endure? Oibo, how the first of wars began, and old Arumfi sought to stay the flow of blood. Your pen has written. But of the days, the weary days of all that war, what tongue can tell? 'Tis said the anger of the gods endured 200 years. We know the priest Osanyi made strange amulets for all the mortal soldiers of the gods. One charm could turn a spear aside, a second robbed. The wounding sword of all its sting, another made one so terrible that a full score must flee, but not one word of the great deeds, of hopes and fears, of imminent defeat, or victory snatched away is handed down. No legend has defied, no voice called through the dimness and the baffling years. But when an end was come to the ill days foreknown to him who speaks not, remembrance of the calm of heaven stole upon the sleepless gods. For while the moon lay soft with all her spell on Ilé-Ifè of the many battles, while with sorrowful reproach the wise trees stood and gazed upon the gods who made the soil, the voices of the forest crooned their dreams of peace. Sleep, sleep, all weary nature craved, and sleep the slumbrous reed folk urged, and twixt the shadow and the silvered leaf, for sleep. Ógun asks Oduwa to give back the bag to Orisha. The drowsing breezes yearned. And with the dawn, Ógun, the warrior, with his comrades, stood before the king, and thus he spoke. Oduwa, we weary of the battle, and its agony weighs heavy on our people. Have you forgot the careless hours of old Arumfi's realm? What means this war, this empty war between one mother's sons? Orisha willed it so, you say. 'Twas said of old, who has no house will buy no broom. Why then did great Orisha bring plagues on those he made in love? In heaven afar Arumfe gave to you the empire, and to Orisha knowledge of the ways of mysteries and hidden things. The bag you seized, but not its clue, the skill, the wisdom of great Orisha, which alone could wake the sleeping lore. The nations of the world are yours. Give back the bag, and great Orisha will trouble us no more. But neither Ógun nor the soft voices of the night could loose Oduwa from the thrall of envy. The rule of men and empire were of no account. When the hot thought of old Arumfi's lore roused his black ire anew, the bag he held, but all the faithless years had not revealed its promised treasures. Bitterly he answered, Oduwa refuses. These many years my brother has made war upon his king, while for the crown, its power and greatness, I have wrought unceasing. Today my son, hope of my cause itself, wearies of war, and joins my enemies. Weak son, the scepter you were born to hold, and hand down strengthened to a line of kings, could not uphold your will and be your spur until the end. Is it not said, shall one priest bury, and anon his mate dig up the corpse? No day's brief work have you undone, but all my heart has longed for through a life of labor. So let it be, God of soft iron. Upon your royal brow descends this day the crown of a diminished chieftaincy, with the sweet honors of a king in name. For I go back to old Arumfi's hills, and transforms to stone, taking the bag with him. And the calm realm you prate of? Then Oduduwa transformed to stone and sank beneath the soil, bearing away the fateful bag. And thus, beneath, through all the ages of the world, a voiceless lore and arts which found no teacher have lain in bondage. 4. The Sacrifice of Mórími. Araba continues. Oibo, I have told you of the days when Oduduwa and Orisha fought, but of the times of peace our annals hold strange legends also. Now in the age when mirth and Oduduwa reigned, grief ever growing, befell great Mórími, the wife of skilled Obalufon, for while his lesser wives proudly bore many sons unto their lord, Mórími has no sons. A daughter only, young Atatun, was granted to his queen. And as the years lagged by, a strangeness which he always seemed to keep in hiding checkered the fair day with doubtings, and waylaid her in the paths of her fond nightly dreams. Once with the spring she saw the clustered tree-tops breaking into leaf-copper and red and every green, and she remembered how beneath the New Year's buds it was ordained by Paragun Gibo, lord of uninhabitable woods, that life should spring from forest and life from life, till all the woods were gladdened with the voice of beasts and birds. And thus she reasoned, is it not told how Paragun Gibo spoke, and from the womb of forest leaped the sloth that laughs by night? How amid the boughs the sloth brought forth the ape that bore the leopard? And did not Paragun watch o'er the birth of young Orunmila? And ever, when the morrow's sorrowing dawn must yield up to the leaguing fiends the child's fair life, did not the watchful god send down his messenger to stay the grasping hand of death? Thus do the gods, and surely one will give me sons. Ah, whom must I appease? She consults Ifa. Quick with new hope, great Mórími sought out a priest of Ifa in his courtyard dim, where from each beam and smoke-grimed pillar hung the charms the wise man set to guard his home, his wives and children from the ills contrived by the bad spirits. To her gift she whispered, and laid it on Okpel, and the priest, seizing the charm of Ifa, said, Okpel, to you the woe of Mórími is known. You only can reveal its secret cause, its unknown cure. Then he laid down the charm, and often Conran stood before them. The face of Ifa's priest was troubled, and he said, who tells her to sacrifice her daughter? Mórími, this is the message of my lord Ifa, a son, nay many sons, you long for. You have a daughter, and your husband's love was yours. The gods would give you many sons, but in your path stands Eshu, the undoer, whose shrine calls out for blood for sacrifice, Adatun. Without hope, Mórími went forth, and loathing of the ways of the gods possessed her, while indignation fed her love of her one child. The months passed by. Moons came, and in the smiles of happier wives she read a mockery. Moons faded from the sky, and grief and her Adatun remained companions of her hours. At last she cried, but sons I'll ask for. I will go again, and pray for sons and my Adatun. The last word is not yet. Olukun's tide has ebbed. Will it not flow again? Yet hope. She consults Ifa again. Went not with Mórími to the dark court of Ifa's priest, and when a torch disclosed the self-same boat of sorrow in the dusk, to her drear home great Mórími fled back in terror of the deed which love commanded and love condemned. Edi advises her to act on Ifa's message. Silently in the night came Edi, the perverter, the smooth of tongue, who with his guileful reasoning compels to conscious sin. The forms of messengers reveal the thoughts of Ifa, and the ears of Ifa, the God-messenger, have heard the far-off thunderous voice. Would you hold back? Is not the birth of nations the first law Arumfe gave? Can any wife withstand his will, or maid stern Ógun's call? Today is yours, O mother of great kings that shall be. The green shoots greet the spring rain and forget the barren months, and Mórími shall know her grief and her reproach no more. Then doubt seized Mórími, but still she answered, will gods not give? Is the grim world a morning market, where they drive bargains with the folk they made? Are babes as bangles, which Obalufon fashions to barter? But Edi answered her, but once Arumfe spoke to Oduduwa, and with what heavy hearts the gods went forth from heaven's valleys to the blackness. Now thrice to the woman Mórími. The word has come with promise of the world's desire. Not every wife is chosen for the mother of a house of kings. And think, Obalufon, the death of Adatun. Then Edi, the perverter, hid his form in darkness, and with the dawn, a young girl lay on the undoer Eshu's altar, while the lazy blue of early morning smoke crept up the pass between the hills. 5. the Úbo Wars. Araba continues. After the War of the Gods, Ifè returns to the arts of peace. Óbo, graven on my memory, is the sad legend which my father told me of the great god's departure. The years slid by, unnoted, while King Ógun reigned. The world was young. Upon the craggy slopes the trees shot forth red buds, and ancient Ifè, gaunt with suffering, dreamed again her early dreams. Taught by the gods, the folk began to learn the arts of heaven's peace anew. The drum returned to measures of the dance, and great Orishas saw the joy of life once more in his creatures' eyes. The foundation of Úbo. Thus lived mankind among the gods, and multiplied until the youth of Ifè sought new homes and wider lands in the vast forest. And thus was born the first fair daughter of Odua's city. Men called her Úbo, and the leader took the name Olubo of Úbo with his chieftaincy, is attended by strife from the first. But to these colonists the gods, their fathers, gave no good gifts. Midst battles with the wild, mid struggles with the forest, the town grew, while dull remembrance of unnatural wrongs bred man's first rebel thought against the gods. And when the time of festival was near, word came to Ifè that the folk of Úbo would bring no gifts nor worship at the feet of Ógun. But the king scorned them, laughing, "Who lights his lamp between the leopard's paws?" The chief of Úbo seeks advice. Years passed in grieving while Olubo sought the homes of spirits of the forest springs, laid gifts at crossway shrines where childless women go, or wandered to drear coasts to share his wrongs, with ocean chafing at his old restraint. But rivers answered not brooks nor gods, of crossway altars at the light of dawn, and through the unceasing hissing of the foam no voice of counsel came. With autumn's fall, Olubo came with gifts before the shrine of the grim forest god who hedged his land, and prayed him to accept the corn he brought and the fat beasts, nor seize his lands again. And the god saw the oil, and smelled the blood of birds and cattle, and the longed-for voice came to Olubo, which the forest god gives him. See, with the rain I come each year upon your fields with springing trees, rank growing grass and vegetation wild. Your work of yesteryear is all undone by my swift desolation. Be this your symbol. Go thus against the scornful ones arrayed as I. In Ifè was great joy. The last black thundercloud has passed. The maids were wed, and all men feasted on the sacred days of Ógun and the Lord of Day. Olubo invades Ifè and takes the men away as slaves. When sudden, from the still forest o'er the walls, there broke portents of moving trees and hurrying grass on Ifè's stone-still revelers. Hope perishes. In the dark hour, a mother sees the dance of white-robed goblins of the midnight streets, a glimpse, no more, and her sick child is lost. Despair held rule. The new-wed wives were lone. Their men were slaves of Úbo lords. The drum was silent and laughter mute. About dull tasks a listless people wandered. But not so Mórími. Mórími consults Ifè, for she, assured of triumph, strode to the dim court of Ifè and laid bare her gift. A vision flickered and was gone, and the priest prophesied, "The bode is good, as when a sick man lies beset by fiends, I call not to the gods for aid, but take the pepper on my tongue, and thus invoke those very fiends in their dread mother's name, and then command the prince of leaguing woes, though hastening to the river's lip, to turn again. Such now is Ifè's counsel, borne swift in the form of messengers to me, his priest, his voice, who advises her to go to Úbo. Evil has come down on Ifè. By evil only can desire prevail. Take 6 he-goats to Ishu the undoer, thus crave his aid and go, great Mórími, a harlot to the land of Úbo. She finds out the secret. So sped Mórími to the rebel town, and when a lord of Úbo sought her midst the shades of night, the undoer's will possessed his lips, and he betrayed the way of Úbo's downfall. While Eshu's shrine yet ran with blood, the gods transformed to stones, rivers, etc. Unknowing, sat alone in their abasement, and Ógun said, "We scorned our upstart son, scorned him and let him be, nor bore in mind the wisdom of the past. A little snake is yet a snake. See now the end has come. Swift from the sight of mocking men we must depart. The sage Osanyi will lay wide the door of our deliverance. Come then, for naked of dominion, what are we gods?" And one by one Osanyi gave his charms to the lorn gods. Orisha could but moan, "Children, I made you, who but I?" and sank beneath the soil he loved. And Oshun threw her body down, but never ceased. A stream gushed up, the sacred stream that flows forever. Olokun fell. 'Neath the wide earth she flowed to the broad spaces of her troubled realm. Except Ógun. So went the gods. But last, as Osanyi gave the charm to Ógun, last of all the gods. Back from the rebel town, great Mórími rushed back, and cried, "The fire the vulture brought shall slay the hosts of Úbo." Oranyan destroys the Úbo army. The months crept by, fate-laden. White King Ógun's warrior son, Oranyan, schooled the seerless lads to war. But when the festive season came, he hid them with red fire prepared within the city, and as the invading hosts of Úbo scaled the walls, a rush of flaming boughs destroyed grass garments and rebellious men. Thus fell Úbo before Oranyan, and her folk saw slavery in Ilé-Ifè. Time spared these deeds, but gave to the impenetrable wilds. The place where Úbo stood, her rebel gods, the Eddy festival, her rites. And here in Ilé-Ifè, by command of Mórími, the children of the captives worship Olubo, but must flee before Oranyan's fire. And on those days of feasting, no man may blame his wife for her misdeeds, all mindful of the guile of Mórími. 6. The passing of Ógun. Araba continues. After the Úbo Wars, Ógun reigns in peace. An age passed by, and Ilé-Ifè knew no more of battles, for Ógun, gray and bent, chose out the way of peace beloved of old Aramfé. Forgotten lives were lived, and shadowy priests kept warm the altars of the departed gods. Old men went softly to the river's lip unsung. Twixt hope and fear mute colonists went forth to the strange forests of the world, and unremembered wives sought out the shrines of the givers of new life. Their names are lost. Yet now Óbo let a final tale be told, for at the last that silent age yields up the legend of its fall. In those last tranquil years the mothers blessed King Ógun for peaceful days and nights' security, and old men used to tell of their brave deeds in battles where Oranyan led, applaud the torch-lit dance, and pass their last calm days happily. But then came traders from the wilds by thorn and tangle of scarce-trodden ways, through the dim woods with wondrous tales they heard. At crossway markets in far lands of deeds, Oranyan did on battlefields beyond the region of the forests. These tales, oft told in house and market, filled the air with rumors and dreams of war which troubled the repose of ancient Ilé-Ifè. For while the fathers feared the coming of the day when the grey god, aweary of earth's kingship, would go back to his first far-off home, the young men's dreams were always of Oranyan, and their pale days lagged by. Oranyan returns from distant wars to demand the crown. Such were the various thoughts of men in Ilé-Ifè when on a clay unheralded Oranyan with a host appeared before her peaceful gates. None could deny his entrance. The hero strode again the streets he saved from the Olubo's grass-clad men, and came before his father to demand the crown of Oduduwa. King Ógun spoke, "My son, 'tis long since you were here, and you are welcome. But why with these armed men do you recall times well forgotten and the ancient wars? This is a land of peace. Beneath the shade of Ife's trees, the mirth of heaven's veils has found a home, the chorus and the dance. Their measure. Lay by your arms, and may no hurt attend your coming or your restful hours." Harshly Oranyan answered his old father, "You speak of peace, great Ógun, and the calm Aramfe destined for a world to be." Aramfe spoke, and Oduduwa's dream of wisdom linked to supreme power begat a theft. And that same night on heaven's rim devised another destiny for men. What heaven-sent art has Ógun to undo that deed and bid the stillborn live? Besides, who taught the peaceful peoples of the world their longing for red war? Who forged their weapons? With steel Aramfe gave for harvesting. Who slew young maids who would not wed to bear more sons for ancient wars? Who pray but Ógun, the god of war? What then? 'Tis said the field the father sowed his son shall reap. And Ógun made answer, "The story of my life has been as the succeeding seasons in the course where Oshun pours her stream. First, long ago, the sunny months of heaven when I roamed a careless boy upon the mountains. Then, as a whole season, when the boisterous storms fill full the crag-strewn bed with racing waters, and the warm sun is hidden by the clouds, doom brought me journeys, toils in darkness, wars, and yet more wars. Again the barren months are here, the wagtail lights upon the rock, the river hid, a lazy trickle moves, and in my age Aramfe's promised peace gives back her stolen happiness to Ife. And now the sage Osanyi is no more, his charms forgotten. I cannot turn to stone and vanish like Oduwa. I cannot cast my worn old body down to rise instead a river of the land, as Oshun did. No, earth must hold me, glad or desolate, a king or outcast in the vague forest, till heaven call me, when the locked pools bask and Oshun sleeps. Till then, I ask to be in peace, and with my tale of days accomplished, my last arts taught, Aramfe's bidding done. I, the lone god on earth who knows fair heaven, and the calm life the Father bade us give to men, I, Ógun, will make way and go upon the road I came. But Oranyan said, "Let the first mistress of the world decide. These years the kingly power has passed away. From the old sleeping town Oduwa built, to me, Oranyan, battling in far lands where no voice spoke of Ife, let Ife choose her way, obscurity or wide renown." A silence fell. The black clouds of the storm were overhanging human destiny. The breathless pause before the loud wind's blast held all men speechless. The old men desire Ógun to remain, though they seem to heave for utterance. At length Elephant, the friend of Ógun, voiced the fond hopes of the old chiefs who feared Oranyan and his coming day. Ours is the city of the shrines which guard the spirits of the gods, and all our ways are ordered by the presences which haunt the sacred precincts. The noise of war and tumult is far from those who dream beneath the trees of Ife. There is another way of life, the way of colonists. By God's command, from this first breast the infant nations stray to the utter marches of humanity. Let them press onward, and let Oranyan lead them, till the far corners of the world be filled. Let the unruly fall before their sword, until the law prevail. But let not Ife swerve from the cool road of her destiny for dreams of conquest, and let not Ógun leave the roof, the evening firelight, and the ways of men, to go forth to the naked woods. And the old chiefs echoed, "Live with us yet, O Ógun, reign on your stable throne." but the young men acclaim Oranyan. But murmurs rose from the young men, suppressed at first, then louder, until their leader, gaining courage, cried, "Empty our life has been," while from far plains, vibrant with the romance, the living luster Oranyan's name bestows, great rumors came to mock our laggard seasons, and each year Mórími's festival recalls alike the hero's name and Ife's greatness. Must all Ife slumber that the old may drowse? No, we will have Oranyan and no other to be our king. And a loud cry went up from his followers, "Oranyan is our king." And in that cry King Ógun heard the doom a chieftain of our day sees clear in eggs of fateful parrots in his inmost chamber. The walls of his proud city, his old defense, can never more uphold a rule of iron, for victor treachery within. And wearily he spoke his last sad words. My boyhood scarce had ended on Aramfi's happy hills when I came here with Oduduwa. With him, lovingly, I watched this ancient city growing, and planted the grand forests for a robe for queenly Ifè. I have grown old with Ifè. Sometimes I feel that Ógun did become Ifè, and Ifè Ógun, with the still lapse of years. Ógun goes away. Yet she rejects me. Ah, my trees would be more kind, and to my trees I go. Dawn came, and Ógun stood upon a hill to westward, and turned to take a last farewell of his old queen of cities, but white and dense. O'er harboring woods and unremembering Ifè, a mist was laid and blotted all. Beyond, as islands from a morning sea, arose two lone gray hills, and Ógun dreamed he saw again those early days, an age gone by, when he and great Oduwa watched the bird found those grand hills with magic sand, bare slopes, yet born to smile. That vision paled. Red gold above gray clouds the sun of yesterday climbed up to shine on a new order. So passed old Ógun from the land. Notes. 1. The creation. The relationships of the various gods are differently stated by different chiefs and priests of Ifè, and also by the same men at different times. It appears, however, that Aramfi ruled in heaven and sent his sons Oduwa and Orisha to a dark and watery region below to create the world and to people it. According to the legends told in Ifè, the gods were not sent away as a punishment, but there is some story of wrongdoing mentioned at Owu in the Jebu country. Aramfi gave a bag full of arts and wisdom to Orisha, and the kingship to Oduwa. On the way from heaven, Oduwa made Orisha drunk and stole the bag. On reaching the edge of heaven, Oduwa hung a chain over the cliff and sent down a priest called Ojumu with a snail shell full of magic sand and a 5-fingered fowl. Ojumu threw the sand on the water, and the fowl kicked it about. Wherever the fowl kicked the sand, dry land appeared. Thus the whole world was made, with Ifè as its center. When the land was firm, Oduwa and Orisha let themselves down the chain and were followed by several other gods. Orisha began making human beings, but all was dark and cold, because Aramfi had not sent the sun with Oduwa, so Oduwa sent up, and Aramfi sent the sun, moon, and fire. Fire was sent on a vulture's head, and that is why the vulture has no feathers on its head. Then the gods began to teach their arts and crafts to men. After many years, Orisha made war upon Oduwa to get back his bag. The various gods took sides, but some looked on. The medicine men provided amulets for the men on both sides. Aramfi was angry with his sons for fighting, and threw his thunderbolts impartially, for he was the god of thunder in those days. The war is said to have lasted 201 years, and came to an end only because the gods on Oduwa's side asked him to give back the bag. Oduwa, in a huff, transformed to stone and sank beneath the earth, taking the bag with him. His son Ógun, the god of iron, then became king. 2. Odumala, the first Orni of Ifè. According to tradition, when the gods transformed, they ordered Odumla to speak for them, to be a father to the whole world, and to remain on earth forever. In the words of an old chief, "It is our ancient law that the spirit of Odumla passes from body to body and will remain forever on the earth. The spirits of the gods are in their shrines, and Odumla speaks for them. I think the Orni claims to be Odumla himself. This is a matter of dogma, and I express no opinion." 3. Oduwa. There is little to add to the story of Oduwa told in parts 1, 2, and 3. Araba told me another version of the end of the War of the Gods. Orisha and Oduwa agreed to stop the fighting on condition that each should have a man for sacrifice every 7 months. 14 months was then regarded as a year. Another story Araba told me was, the moon is a round crystal stone, which is with Oduwa. They take it in front when they go to sacrifice to Oduwa, otherwise the god would injure the man who offers the sacrifice. Oduwa is said to have taken the stone from a Muslim, and to have been in the habit of looking at it. When I went to Oduwa's shrine, there was a great knocking of doors to warn the god of my arrival. I did not see the stone. 4. Orisha and the creation of man. The legend of Orisha's creation of man is mysterious. He is said to have thrown images into wombs. I was once told he put signs into women's hands. I can only account for this story by the suggestion that it may date from a period when men had not discovered the connection between sexual intercourse and the birth of children. As to spirit life before birth, the priest of Aramfi said, "A child may have been with the spirits, but when he is born, he forgets all about it." The sacrifice offered to Orisha consists of 8 goats, 8 fishes, 8 rats, and 8 kola nuts. Orisha was a god of great knowledge, apart from the contents of the bag which was stolen from him, and taught his son Oluwarogbo, who, according to tradition, is the ancestor of the white races. The Orni attributes ascendancy of Europeans to the upbringing of Oluwarogbo. Our ancestor has need of eggs, fowls, sheep, kola, and snails. 5. Obalufon. Little is told of Obalufon, the husband of Mórími. He was a man sent from heaven by Aramfi, and was a weaver and a worker in brass. He also showed the people how to tap the palms for palm wine. Apart from that, he took care of everybody as a mother of a child, and used to go round the town to drive out sickness and evil spirits. His image represents him as a king. 6. Mórími. Mórími is the great heroine of the Ifè legends. The story of her sacrifice, which I have adopted, is Araba's version. I went also to Mórími's priest, who showed me her image of painted wood and no artistic merit, representing a naked negress. His story was much the same as Araba's, but in his version, Mórími sacrificed her only son Yesu for the whole world and not to any god. It would appear that some early Christian missionary had recognized the Virgin Mary in Mórími, but it may be doubted whether the missionary had heard of Mórími's visit to Úbo. See Note 7. 7. Úbo and the Ilé-Ifè Festival. The story of the Úbo Wars is that some colonists went from Ifè to found a new town which they called Úbo, but as the gods had given them nothing, they invaded Ifè. On the first occasion they were driven back, but the next year they came dressed in grass, terrified the people of Ifè, and took the men as slaves. And in those parts of Africa, dead kings and gods in need of sacrifice are believed to prefer slaves to free men. Then Mórími consulted Ifa, and was told to sacrifice 6 goats and 6 bags of cowries to Eshu, and go as a harlot to Úbo. Her mission was successful, and she returned with the necessary information, only to find the gods had transformed to rivers, stones, etc. It seems that Ógun did not transform, as he was afterwards displaced by his son Oranyan. Acting on Mórími's advice, Oranyan set fire to the Úbo soldiers on their next inroad. The end of Úbo is commemorated by Edi, the festival of Mórími, which began on the 21st of November in 1913. Men dressed in hay parade the town but have to run for their lives when others pursue them with fire. Fire is also taken out to the bush. On the first day of Edi, the Orni appears, but must remain in the Afen palace for the remaining 7. During this period, the women do honor to Mórími's share in the victory by emulating her deed, and their husbands are not allowed to interfere. The meaning of the legend is doubtful. There may have been such a town as Úbo, but it seems likely that the festival is connected with agriculture. Úbo, or Igbo, means the bush, and Mórími may have advised the customary burning of the bush to prepare the land for crops. The date of the festival, early in the dry season, the fire and the men dressed in hay, all suggest this interpretation. On the other hand, the same arguments, combined with the seclusion of the Orni and the license of the women, would favor the view that Edi was the more general festival of the Saturnalia. Possibly it was so originally, and the demons to be driven out appeared so material in the form of tropical vegetation that Úbo, the bush to be burned, has obscured the former meaning of the festival. If this be so, Mórími's mission to Úbo may be a later fable to account for the license of the women before farming operations begin. 8. Oshun. Oshun was a woman or goddess in high favor with both Oduwa and Orisha. "It were well were Oshun with us," said Oduwa, and Orisha agreed. Accordingly, she took her place on Oduwa's left, Orisha being on his right. That is to say, Oshun was considered the third personage in Ifè. The second chief in Ifè, the Obalufe, claims descent from Oshun for himself and half the people of his quarter of the town. He has a well in his compound called Oshun, which is said to be the actual water into which Oshun transformed herself. He says his first forefather took a calabash of the water with him when he went to war, and this gallon became the source of the river. The source is 40 miles from Ifè, and perhaps the Obalufe is right. The well is never dry, and it is needless to add that the water has many curative properties. One would be surprised if a descendant of Oshun died, except from other causes. At the time of the Oshun festival, says Obalufe, all her tribe collect sheep, goats, yams, agidi, palm wine, kola, rats, fish, and pigeons, and bring them to me for the feast. Oshun gets the blood of goats, sheep, and pigeons, the head of a rat, but not of a fish. We eat the fish, although they are the children of Oshun and consequently are brothers. Oshun is more straight-laced than her descendants. 9. Olokun. There is a pond in Ifè called Okun, the ocean, where Olokun transformed to water. Thence she flowed underground and came out in the sea. Her priest showed me a bronze head of Olokun, which has considerable merit. He told me that, in return for sacrifice, Olokun gives beads. In Benin, Olokun is considered to be the goddess of wealth as well as of the sea, and a king of Benin, who must have been alive about 1400 AD, is said to have found the treasures of Olokun laid out on the shore and to have looted her coral. 10. Ógun and Oranyan. Ógun was the son of Oduwa and is usually regarded as the god of iron and of war. According to his chief priest, the Oshogun, he went away to war and captured a woman called Deshoju, whom he made his wife. When Ógun returned to Ifè, Oduwa took Deshoju from his son. There is therefore some doubt as to whether Ógun was the father of Oranyan, who was born with a leg, an arm, and half his body black, the remainder being white, according to the Oshogun. Ógun may have had other attributes. He may have been a phallic deity because there are hewn stones in Ifè called the staves of Ógun, which appear to be of phallic origin. It is also noteworthy that, at the time of his festival, Ógun is said to kill any marriageable girl he may find in her mother's house. This happened once to Araba. The prospective son-in-law could not produce 5 pounds, and Araba, who gives no credit, lost a potential 5-pound note in the shape of his daughter. Further, when a child is circumcised, the severed skin is put in a calabash of Ógun to worship him, together with a snail, in order that the wound may heal. Ógun may also have been the sun god, or a worshipper of the sun god. His festival is commonly called Olojor, Lord of Day. Oshogun says Ógun was Olojor. Araba says Olojor was someone else, the confusion being due to the circumstance that the two festivals take place at the same time. In this connection, the half-and-half coloring of Oranyan is suggestive. The dog is the principal animal used for sacrifice to Ógun. Oranyan prefers a ram, a rat, cola, and much palm wine. Eventually, Oranyan displaced his father, who planted his staves in Ilé-Ifè and went away. I have presumed the death of Osanyi, as I cannot otherwise explain the fact that Ógun went away, instead of transforming as the other gods had done. In his turn, Oranyan went away. He had too much medicine to die. 11. The cult of Paragon-Igbo. Paragon-Igbo, or Paragon-Igbo, seems to have been a god who caused the forest to bring forth birds and beasts. He was a son of God, and came to earth with Eber, worship, and Edi, a god who causes men to do what they know to be wrong. It is evident from the incantation below that Paragon-Igbo was originally approached by people in need of children, but nowadays the same formula is recited by the priest whatever a man may be asking for. The priest tells the man to bring a sheep, cola, palm oil, a pigeon, a cock, and a hen, also a live goat for the priest. The priest kills the sheep, pigeon, cock, and hen. The 3 birds and a part of the sheep are placed in separate broken pots with palm oil. The man is then told to produce 9 pennyworth of cowries, which are also put in the pots. The priest takes the balance of the mutton in addition to the live goat. The priest then faces the pots, puts pepper, atare, into his mouth, and recites the incantation. 1. Igbo Lobi Iror. The forest bore the sloth. 2. Iror Lobi Ogubor. The sloth bore the monkey. 3. Ogubor Lobi Ahan Namaja. The monkey bore the leopard. 4. Ahan Namaja Lobi Erelu Agama. The leopard bore the guinea fowl. 5. Erelu Agama Lobi Ekusa. The guinea fowl bore the hawk. 6. Ekusa Lobi Ojugbona. The hawk bore the evil spirit who guards heaven's gate. 7. Ojugbona Lobi Afi Ikere Tikere Ehin Eku. The evil spirit bore the generative organs of men and women. 8. Paragon-Igbo Niaboba Imale. Untranslated. Email is Paragon-Igbo's messenger and is sent to do what the man asks. 9. Oriyami Lapopo. Good luck is human. 10. Eze Ami Lapeokute Abba. The father of a lucky child is lucky. 11. Atorladorla Igbata Lor Wordifafun Orunmila Nigbati Nuan Fiojor Iku Redola. Atorladorla Igbata approached Ifa on behalf of Orunmila when they had fixed his death for the morrow. Atorladorla Igbata is a good spirit who keeps on postponing an evil deed contemplated by someone. 12. Orunmila ni katikun tikun katikere tikere. Orunmila says menstruation will cease and pregnancy will begin. 13. Orunmila ni onkoyunla orun. Orunmila says that he, the child, will not go to heaven, that is, will be born alive. When the priest has finished the recitation, the man takes the pots to the shrine of Eshu, the devil. The first 10 sentences are in praise of Paragon-Igbo, who ordered Atorladorla Igbata to go to Ifa and is now asked to send Imale to Orunmila with the applicant's request. The incantation is apparently in some form of archaic Yoruba, and the Babalawo had to explain much of it to the interpreter. Some of the translations are probably very loose. 12. The Divination of Ifa. A fragment. Ifa was the messenger of the gods, and is consulted by the Yoruba on all subjects. His priests, called Babalawo, profit considerably by divination, which they perform with sand on a circular board, or with a charm called okpel. Okpela consists of 8 pieces of bark on a string. These 8 are arranged in 4s. Each of the pieces of bark may fall either with the outside or the inside showing. Consequently, each set of 4 may fall in 16 different ways, having different names and meanings. The 16 names are 1. Ogbi, all face down, inside showing. 2. Oyaku, all face up, outside showing. 3. Iwori. 4. Edi. 5. Obara. 6. Okanran. 7. Roshan. 8. Owarin. 9. Egutan. 10. Osa. 11. Eret. 12. Etura. 13. Olobon. 14. Eka. 15. Oshi. 16. Ofun or Orangun. When Okpela is thrown on the ground and the 2 4s are identical, the resultant is called Ogbi Meji, Egutan Meji, Oyeku Meji, Osa Meji, Iwori Meji, Arete Meji, Edi Meji, Etura Meji, Obara Meji, Ologbon Meji, Okanran Meji, Eka Meji, Roshun Meji, Oshi Meji, Aworin Meji, Ofun Meji. These are called the 16 messengers of Ifa. The chance, however, of the 4 on the Babalawo's left agreeing with that on his right is only 1 in 16. The other 15 combinations which may appear with Ogbi on the right are called Ogbi Yeku, Ogbi Wori, Ogbi Di, and Si, similarly with the other messengers of Ifa. These combinations are called the children of the messenger who appears on the right. Thus, Ogbi Yeku is a child of Ogbe. Oyeku Logbi is a child of Oyeku. From this, it will be seen that Okpela can show 256 combinations. Procedure. A man comes to a Babalawo to consult Ifa. He places a gift of cowries, to which he has whispered his needs, before the Babalawo. The latter takes Okpel and places it on the cowries. He then says, "You, Okpele, know what this man said to the cowries. Now tell me." Then he lifts Okpel and lays it out on the floor. From the messenger or child which appears, the Babalawo is supposed to deduce that his client wants a son, has stolen a goat, or has a toothache, as the case may be. He then tells him what he must bring as a sacrifice to achieve his ends. In all cases, the sacrifice, or a large part of it, is offered to Eshu, the devil, for fear that he might undo the good work. For instance, the client is poor and needs money. Edimeji appears, and the Babalawo tells his client to bring a dog, a fowl, and some cowries and palm oil. The man splits the dog and the fowl, puts palm oil and cowries inside them, and takes them to Eshu. The Babalawo presumably takes the bulk of the cowries for himself. The appearance of Ogbi Meji promises long life, but a goat must be brought. If a man has no children and Oyeku Meji appears, he must bring a ram and a goat. Iwori Meji demands eggs, a pigeon, and cowries from a sick man. Edi Meji, as above. Obara Meji. A sacrifice of 2 cocks, 2 hens, and 250 cowries is needed to purify after menstruation. Okanran Meji, a goat and 500 cowries bring on menstruation. Roshun Meji, a she-goat and 2 hens to cure a headache. Aworin Meji, 4 cocks and 800 cowries to bring about the death of one's enemy. Egutan Meji, a ram, large, and 1,200 cowries to cure a bad bellyache. Osa Meji, butcher's meat and 4 pigeons to drive away witchcraft. Eret Meiji, minus 2 pigeons, 2 cocks, and 600 cowries to get children. Etura Meiji, 1 large gown, a sheep, and 300 cowries to cure eye disease. Ologubon Meiji, sacrifice 4 snails and 4 pigeons if you suspect someone wishes to poison you. Eka Meiji, 4 hens, oil, and 700 cowries for earache. Ofun Meiji, if children keep on dying, sacrifice 16 snails, 16 rats, 16 fishes, and 1,600 cowries, and the following children will live. Ose Meiji, 8 snails, 8 pigeons, and 800 cowries for children. Ogbe Yeku, A. If a man has no money, he must bring 4 pigeons, 2 shillings, and soap. The Babalawo mixes leaves, Uwe Ira, with the soap as a charm, and the man must use it for a bath. B. If a man is very ill, he must offer 3 he-goats and 5 shillings 6 pence. He will then be better. Ogbe Wari. A. If a man is sick, he must offer 8 shillings and a sheep, otherwise he will die. B. If a man needs money, he must bring thread and 6 pigeons and buy soap. The Babalawo gets aji and puts them on the soap with the pigeon's blood. The thread is put inside the soap. The man then washes. C. If a man has committed a crime, he must bring 7 cocks and 35 shillings. The Babalawo kills the cocks and takes the 35 shillings for himself. He takes the sand of Ogbe Wari from the Ilé-Ifè board and puts some on each cock's breast, with 260 cowries. 5 of the cocks are then given to Eshu, and the other 2 are taken to a place where 3 roads meet. Then either a necessary witness will not appear in court, or the accused will be found not guilty. D. If 2 men want the same woman, and Ogbe Wari appears, when one of them consults Ilé-Ifè, the Babalawo asks for 4 hens and a he-goat. The woman then becomes the client's wife. Eshu gets the hens and the goat's blood, the Babalawo the goat. 13. A cure for sudden and serious illnesses. The priest puts pepper, atare, into his mouth and recites, Akaleja, Akaleja, a spirit who grips a man by the throat and makes breathing quick and uneasy. Akalawasa, a spirit who causes eye disease. Akutobarun, spirits which trouble sick persons. Amuror Fashurgere, spirits now called Anjanu, who cause delirium. Amulapashaya, one who causes bad bellyache. Ojoboloro, spirits who cause severe headaches. Abiyete Ashurmunyanyan, one who has a very sharp edge to his cloth and causes backache. Asa Ntete Mofarapa, imps seen at night in white cloths, now called Elere. They afflict children. Olomo Aro, Niyeye Eshuku, Olomo Aro, who art the mother of evils. She does no harm, but is invoked because her children, already named, will listen when prayed in their mother's name. Aron Poshe Irike, the husband of Olomo Aro and the father of the evil spirits. If he is not invoked, the sick man dies. He is also called upon to stop his son's mischief. Eshuku denleni imi, evil, leave my back. When this has been spoken, the spirits leave the sick man. Be ebura nlabadaeti omi apeyinda. If the great evil comes to the river's bank, he will turn back. Ebura Intla is the master of all the evils. If called by the other spirits, he comes to the further bank of the river Arenkenken, which is described as the water of heaven. If he crosses to the near side, the sick man dies. After finishing the incantation, the priest takes some of the pepper from his tongue and puts in on the patient's head. The patient recovers and is able to take nourishment at once. The Yoruba of this is probably archaic. The interpreter did not understand it, and the Babalawo had to explain. 14. Aji Ija, the dust devil. Ajija was a doctor who lived with Aramfi and came to Earth with another doctor. They made various medicines, one to kill a man when asked to do so. He pronounced certain words, and the man died. He could also kill with his walking stick. He lives on Ok Aramfi, Oke Ora, and can only be approached through Aramfi, the father of the gods, because he is a bad man. He is worshipped near Aramfi's shrine. When he wishes to make trouble, he comes through the town. He sometimes sets fire to a house by picking the fire up and putting it on the thatch. When a man meets Ajija, he should protect himself by putting pepper in his mouth and saying, Ahanrien, Fagata Shaumi, names of Ajija, Ki Iru Rebomi, put your tail in water. The man should then spit the pepper at Ajija. Sometimes Ajija turns into a big lizard. According to another story, Ajija is a devil with one leg who throws men down and breaks their ankles.